Hello, quilters, and welcome to February of the 2026 Studio 180 Design Calendar. Studio 180 Design has published a lovely wall calendar, and each month they're highlighting one of their favorite, most popular patterns. And for February, we're talking about snowdrops. Snowdrops uses a lot of tools. It uses a corner beam, a corner pop, rapid fire Lemoyne star, and V block tools. Well, I'm not making all four. I'm just going to do the V block with the corner pop tool. And so I'm going to be using the V block tool instructions and the corner pop. And it makes a really cute little unit. Now, each month, I started off in January with that center block. I added a sashing around it. Now what I'm going to do for February is add a top and a side border. And then for March, I will add the other side and the bottom border and do 2 months at once. So let's get started. We are working on the snowdrops pattern. And the tools that we can be using is the corner beam, the corner pop, a rapid fire Lemoyne star, and a V block. And I think what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using the V block, this very first one, with a corner pop. And so I need my background fabric. I need, you can say they're leaves almost, little V's, the outside corners, and then my center. I'm going to be making 2-inch units, so 2 inches by 2 inches. They'll be really, really tiny. And so the first thing that I need to do is look at my V block instructions, and it tells me that I need to cut strips of fabric that are 3 inches. So I'm going to cut my background fabric and my center fabric, 2 strips that are 3 inches first. So I'm going to cut my center V's first. So I'm going to be cutting these portions first. And what I'm going to do is just fold over my strip and gently fold. And that fold needs to be just wide enough to accommodate my ruler. I'm going to be lining up on this double line or this dotted line. And I'm going to cut. There I got 1, 2. Okay, so I flip over my strip, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up that solid line, and it's telling me a 2-inch finished unit, and I'm going to cut 2 more. So I now have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to put that aside because I may use that later. Now I'm going to cut the triangle units that are going to go on the edge here. And this time I'm going to be using that dotted line to cut. They are going to go just like that. So I'm going to use the second triangle line. So I'm going to line everything up and cut. So that's 2 sets. Go back to my first one. 3 sets. And I always get lost here. So I'm going to cut for a total of 8 sets. We're going to lay out our units and sew them together. What we're going to do is we're going to do exactly the same thing we did with the wedge star, and we're going to turn everything around. We're going to match the tip and the tip, and we're going to sew. And we are going to press to the triangle. So we'll press it over to the triangle, and we're going to sew the right side on. Again, now we've got a tiny little ear right here in the corner. And what we're going to do is going to match that ear up, stitch that together, and we are going to press away from the triangle. So we're going to do all 8 of those, then we'll trim. Okay, my blocks are all pieced and pressed. And now what I'm going to use my V block trimmer to trim up my blocks to measure the exact size that I want, which in this case is 2 inches finished, which would be 2.5 inches cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that the V is facing me and line up this diagonal line on my seam, little intersection at the X, and I'm going to trim. Let me just turn that a little more my way because I'm a lefty. And I'm going to cut, and I'm going to cut. I'm going to rotate, line it up again, this time on that 2.5 inch. There we go. Whoops, things are slipping on me. I think I need to stand to trim. So you're going to have to bear with my arm in the way. Let's do it right-handed. Line everything up exact. Trim. Oh, keep slipping. I need to put some of that Invisigrip on the bottom of this, but I'm all out. I will order some with my next order. There we go. Rotate all the way around. Then I find the 2.5 inch line. Going to trim. And I'm going to trim. All right, let's try this again. Trim and trim. Rotate. Trim and trim. So to get the little triangles on the side, we're going to be moving over to the corner pop tool. Now, there's 3 different corner pop tools. The first one is a 45-degree angle. And so we're going to be cutting off fabric off our base triangle units or base V-block units and adding little triangle units like that. So the instructions tell us that if we are doing a 2-inch unit, we need to cut half. We're going to do our cutaway at 1 inch. We need to cut our squares, 2.25, cut them in half diagonally. And then we're going to use the 1 inch trim down line. So let's do 1. These are our cutaway corners, and this is what we need. And so we're going to do the 1 inch. So we're going to find the 1 inch just like that. And we are going to cut. We are going to place our little triangle on there and stitch it in place. We are going to press that piece of fabric away. Then we're going to trim that corner. And we're going to trim at that 1 inch line again. So we have 2 sets of lines on here. We have our corner trim downs, And then we have our cutaways. So again, I'm going to find that one line, cut away. I'm going to cut this away. I'm going to add my next triangle and stitch that. When it comes to pressing, I stitched that seam. When it comes to pressing, this time I'm going to go against the instructions because I know I'm going to have a whole row of these lined up, and I want those seams of those triangles to nest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press towards the center. That 1 inch should be right there. And trim and trim. This, if I measure it carefully, should measure, whoops, so let's get the right number, 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. Perfect. Let's make a few more. My units are all done. And as I've been laying them out, I've been thinking, doesn't look very February. Looks more like corn. So I may have to pay closer attention to my colors going forward. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew a set of 4 together and then a set of 4. And I'm thinking I may just put a solid white square or background square in there. And I'm going to add that to the outside, to 2 sides of my January block. So let's sew some pairs together. We're at the end of February sewing, and I've got my little V block with corner beam blocks, and I'm doing 2 sides, and I've just decided to add just a small little square in the center, in the corner, just to kind of give the eye a resting point. It's not very February, it's more springy, maybe it's more autumny, looking like corn in my mind, but it is what it is. We're going to sew them together. So I'm going to sew these 2 pieces. I'm going to sew my corner on to my border, and then I will sew that border on.